Then active reconnaissance. In active information gathering or in active reconnaissance, we gather information by directly communicating with the victim. In active information gathering, we gather information about domain name system, open port, services, operating system, etc. DNS enumeration. Information such as IP address, server name, and often even server functionality can be discovered by DNS enumeration. We can interact with the DNS server using DNS client such as hosts, dig, and NSLOOKUP tool. Now I will use the tool host for DNS enumeration. So the command is host, then you need to specify the target by using -t, and for name server we need to use the option ns followed by the domain name. Suppose here we are using the domain name microsoft.com. So we got all the DNS server with the domain microsoft.com. Now mail server enumeration. Using mail server enumeration, we can find information about all the mail server related with a particular domain. Using the host command, we can also enumerate the mail server. The command is like this. Host, then by using -t we need to specify the mail server MX, that is mail exchange server, followed by the domain name. Here we all again use the domain name microsoft.com. Microsoft.com mail is handled by 10 microsoft-com.mail.protection.outlook.com. Now suppose we are going to search the mail exchange server for the domain nptl.ac.in. Host -t, then mx, nptel.ac.in. Now we got all the mail server for the domain nptl.ac.in. Now DNS zone transfer. Zone file contained a list of all the DNS name configured for that particular zone. For this reason, zone transfer should usually be limited to authorized secondary DNS service only. Unfortunately, many admin misconfigure that DNS service. As a result, anyone ask for a copy of a DNS service zone file and receive it. Now suppose I am searching for the DNS server of the domain nptl.ac.in. Now we got 3 name server. Now suppose I want to transfer the zone for the first DNS server. So here I also use the command host dash L, then the domain name nptl.ac.in followed by the name server. So there is no permission for the zone transfer, so that's why transfer failed. Scanning. In scanning, the attacker begins to actively gather information from a target machine or network for vulnerabilities that can be exploited. There are different types of scanning are there, like network scan, port scan, version or service scan, OS scan, vulnerability scan, etc. Network scan. It basically detects the live host on the network. Port scan detect the open port on the host. Version or service scan detect the software and the version to the respective service running in any particular port. OS scan detect operating system. Vulnerability scan detect computers or computer systems or networks or applications for weakness. Now I am discussing some important scanning option. Dash small s capital S. This is used for stealth scan. In this type of scan, basically initiate a TCP connection with the target but never complete the three-way handshake. That's why this is called stealth scan. Dash small s capital T, used for TCP connect scan. The TCP connect scan can often be used to gather more information about the target than the stealth scan, as a full TCP connection is made with the targeted host. Dash small s capital U, UDP scan. The UDP scan accesses the UDP port on the target system. Unlike scanning TCP port, UDP scan expect to receive replies back from systems that have tested ports are closed. Dash SA or ACK scan. The ACK scan is used to try to determine if a TCP port is filtered or unfiltered. Different timing templates are also there. T0, that is paranoid, T1 sneaky, T2 polite, T3 normal, T4 aggressive, and T5 incense. Nmap offers a simpler approach with 6 timing templates. You can specify them with the dash capital T option and their number from 0 to 5 or their name. The template name are paranoid, we use 0 for paranoid, sneaky we use 1, we use 2 for polite, we use 3 for normal, we use 4 for aggressive, and we use 5 for incense scan. The first two are for IDS evasion. Polite mode slows down the scan to use less bandwidth and target machine resources. Normal mode is the default, and so dash capital T3 does nothing. Aggressive mode speed scans up by making the assumption that you are on a reasonably fast and reliable network. Finally, incense mode assumes that you are on an extraordinary fast network or are willing to sacrifice some accuracy for speed. This template allows the user to specify how aggressive they wish to be, while leaving Nmap to pick the exact timing values. The templates also make some minor speed adjustment for which fine-grained control options do not currently exist. Now we are also providing the timing template and their effect. And there are different output options are also there. We use dash small o capital N for normal output. The normal output option will create a text file that can be used to evaluate the scan result or use as input for other programs. Dash small o capital X, that is used for XML output. XML output can be used for input into a number of different applications for further processing or evaluation. Dash small o capital G, greppable output. Greppable output is often used by penetration tester to allow further investigation using tools like grep, but can also be searched using tools like AWK, ACD and DIFF. Dash small o capital S, script kiddies output. While not used for serious penetration testing, the script kiddie output can be fun to use from time to time. Now I use the tool Nmap for scanning. So first type of scan is network scan. That means need to find out all the live hosts in the network. So first we need to use the command nmap. Then we can use some timing option. Then to find out all the live hosts in the network, we need to use the option dash small s capital P, and then the total range of the network. Now I am finding out the IP address of my machine by using the command ifconfig. So the IP address of my machine is 192.168.0.102 and the net mask is 255.255.255.0. So I can use the whole network range like this: 192.168.0.0/255, or I can also use the total subnet like this. So nmap started, and it also keep us the list of live hosts in this network. So 192.168.0.1 is live, and corresponding MAC address is also there. It's TP-Link Technologies, so it's basically the router IP address. Now 192.168.0.100 is also live. Then 103, 105, 106 and 102. So total 7 hosts are up. Now next type of scan, that is port scan. So for port scan, we need to use the option dash small p followed by the port number or port name or port range also. So suppose I want to scan the port from 1 to 1000, then I need to use the IP address. So suppose I'm searching, means I'm scanning the system with the IP address 192.168.0.106. Okay, so for first 1000 port, 999 port are filtered and a single port 135 that is open, and the service MSRPC is running. Now the thing is that what are the filtered, unfiltered, open, close port? So open port basically an port that actively respond to an incoming connection. Closed port, a closed port is a port on a target that actively responds to a probe but does not have any service running on the port. Closed ports are commonly found on systems where no firewall is in place to filter incoming traffic. Filtered filtered ports are that ports which are typically protected by a firewall of some sort that prevents Nmap from determining whether or not the port is open or closed. Unfiltered, an unfiltered port is a port that Nmap can access but is unable to determine whether it is open or closed. Open or filtered, an open filtered port is a port which Nmap believes to be open or filtered but cannot determine which exact state the port is actually in. Closed filtered, a closed filtered port is a port that Nmap believes to be closed or filtered but cannot determine which respective state the port is actually in. Now I am scanning another host for first 1000 port. So now the IP address, target IP address is 192.168.0.1. Okay, port 80 is open for this host and HTTP service is running. Next, service or version scan. Using service or version scan, we can find out the exact version of a service which is running in any particular port. Dash small s capital V option is basically used for service or version scan. Nmap, then timing option dash T capital 4, then dash S capital V, then IP address 192.168.0.106. port 135 is open and MSR PC service is running and version is Microsoft Windows RPC. Okay. Now I am using different scanning option. Suppose I want to scan the first 1000 port using the still scan option. So I need to use nmap, then scanning option dash s capital S, then dash capital T4, then dash small p followed by the port range and then IP address. Okay, so see here is a difference in scanning. In port 80 HTTP service is running. Now using TCP scan, see what happened. So for TCP scan we need to use dash small s capital T option. Okay, the result would be same. Now suppose using the UDP scan we used to scan the port 53. So for UDP scan we need to use the small s capital U option and we are going to scan the port 53. So P, then 53 port number and then the IP address. No, it can't able to find out the port 53 in UDP scan. Now I am using UDP scan. I'm going to scan another host, that is the IP address 192.168.0.106. Okay, port 53 UDP port is basically closed. Now I am performing ACK scan. For ACK scan we need to use dash small s capital A and then suppose I'm going to scan first 1000 port for the IP address 192.168.0.106. Okay, see port 139 and port 445 TCP port is basically filtered. Okay, so now I'm going to use some output option. So suppose I want to store this result in a txt file. So for txt output we need to use dash small o capital option followed by the file name. Suppose here the file name is scan.txt and the location is root plus my file okay. Now go to the location. Now this is root and here is my folders, my file, and then this is the result scan.txt. See, so this way we can store the result in a text file and also in a XML file, and grepable option is also available. Now OS scan is also there to find out the operating system for a particular host. So for operating system we need to use the option dash capital O. Okay, see, here is the result. Microsoft Windows. Okay, so the victim machine basically run over Microsoft Windows. Now there is also some other scanning option are also available, like aggressive scan, nmap. Then suppose I am using the timing option T4, and then for aggressive scan we can use the option dash capital A and then the IP address of the victim machine. So by doing the aggressive scan we can find out the service scan and operating system scan together. It gives us the result about some common services which is running in particular port and as well as the operating system also. Now see, port 80 is open and TP-Link WR740N WAP HTTP configuration version are there, and 1900 TCP port is open, UPnP service is running, and the version is IPOS UPnP, and the thing is that operating system is Linux with the kernel 2.6. So we got all these details by using the aggressive scan. Sometimes firewall also block the ping request sent by the tool nmap. So in that case we can use the option dash capital P small n to bypass the firewall. So it basically no ping scan. See the result. Now packet fragmentation. An nmap scan will use tiny IP fragments if the dash small f is specified. By default, nmap will include up to 8 bytes of data in each fragment. So a typical 20 or 24 byte TCP packet is sent in 3 tiny fragments. Every instance of dash small f adds 8 to the maximum fragmented data size. See, here is the result.